Alright, welcome back. So today we've got something a little different. We're going to go ahead and take the Golem out mining, but we're going to do it with an M2. As you can see here, we're inside the ship, and as you saw off to the other side there is where the bags are. So I've actually already found an outcropping of rocks to mine. So we're going to go ahead and jump in the Golem and start mining. Um, Basically, I just want to show you what you can do with the Golem. I mean, it's pretty much like the Prospector, just no living space. Now, it does come with a bespoke laser, mining laser, so you can't change it, but you can put modules on it. I'm currently running, I believe, the Riger C3, and I believe the... What's the other one? Well, we'll see here in a minute. Alright, now, the logic behind this, the turret. That way it gives you a faster charge rate. Alright, so the logic behind it is the scanning's not working properly on the Golem currently. So you can't really find rocks as easily. Or at least you can't see what they are. As far as like how many rocks are there or anything. I believe you can still see how far away it is, but that's about it. Um, so the mining laser in this is comparable to the Helix, but it has different pluses and minuses that offset. And it still takes two modules, obviously. So I've got those two, and then I've actually got, I don't remember if I have a saber with me or not right now, but we're going to try to avoid using it anyway. So as you can see, we're just kind of looking through, see what we got here. And once we get situated, we'll start breaking. And as you notice, there is a Quantanium. So we'll save that for last. We'll make sure we save enough room for all of it. Because you figure 49%, so we're looking at probably 9 SEU, roughly. If we grab it all. Alright, so the other thing with the Golem is the range is very short, just like the Helix. Like it's 45. Outside of the max range, you will not even hit the rock. That's a change they've made to mining in the last patch or two. So if you're too far away, you won't even touch it. As you can see with this setup, it still gives you a pretty decent charge window. And again, if you watched any of my other videos, we pretty much just kind of try to keep it within the first half of the charge zone. That way you don't run the risk of blowing the rock. So basically do whatever you got to do to get it up in there. And then back off. And we'll see what kind of break we got here. Oh, that's not bad. And keep in mind, we've got, I believe, 3 sets of bags. So, theoretically, we could grab just about all of this. Because most of these rocks are less than 10k, with the exception of the 2 big ones on either side. Yes, they did add some animation. So when it's extracting now, it spins. Now, normally with like a Prospector with 32 SEU, you'd have to be very picky about what you grab. But the nice thing about running around like this is you don't. You can just kind of grab what you want and move on. And of course, there's the whole extra bag, so you just put another bag on. Alright, let's move around here and see if we're missing anything. Doesn't look like most of that's still pretty low. Yeah. No, that's low too. Alright. Well, let's move on to the next rock. You got a Bexolite here at 36%, I believe. Right around there. 36, 38. Same mentality. Get it up there in the charge zone, then back off a little. Nice thing about this setup is on most rocks it gives you a nice little buffer on that charge zone, so that you don't have to worry about popping anything. Now obviously when we go to do the Quantanium we're going to have a much smaller charge zone, and we'll just have to work with it. And I mean, if you do go into the red in the beginning, it's not a huge issue. You just got to back off a little bit and let it cool off. Now, once you get closer towards the end of the charge zone, then you run the risk of actually blowing the rock. Obviously, we're up at like 80-something%. We're going to grab that. Now keep in mind with a lot of the things they've been running, some of the other lesser used materials like copper, iron, corundum, stuff like that have been useful for some of their missions. So I'm not as concerned with grabbing this kind of stuff just in case you come out with stuff like new missions and so forth. We'll probably wipe and I'll lose it all before that anyway, but if that's the case I'll just sell it all. So it's still money. Sorry about that. Spring is here. The sinuses are going nuts. We're just going to go ahead and grab most of this Bexolite. Again, I have multiple sets of bags, so I'm not too worried. And I can actually change them out. And then I believe the one off to the side here is another Terranite rock, so... Alright, so now to the part we've been waiting for. Now we've got a full bag. So, as you can see, I actually left my M2 up in the air. You could land it. I left it up in the air, obviously, because that way it's that much more difficult for somebody to get into. And there is an issue with the bags sometimes falling through the floor. So this way, I don't have them underneath the ship stuck. Now, do you have to leave it that high up? No. But this gives you a little room to work with. And then since I'm going to unload the bag and put a new one on, I'm going to go ahead and back the ship in. Because you have to pull the bags on the Golem out the back when it's landed. Now, if you have somebody else in there with you, and they can pull them off, then you can just pull in and hover and let them change the bags out and take off. But what's the odds you're going to have somebody else sitting in there doing that? Now, this raises some interesting questions for when things like the Ironclad come out, or the Liberator. Because then, theoretically, you could actually have somebody there doing the bags for you. Because they could be in there supporting, like, multiple golems. Alright, now that we're landed, we'll go ahead and make sure the ports are unlocked. Make sure you don't fall out of the plane, out of the ship. So make sure you back in far enough. The smallest ships I found that it fits in properly is the Hercules line. It's about the only one it really fits in is the Hercules ships. So what I do is I take them off and I set them to the side. And this one will actually drop off and just pull out the back. If you try to pull it out from underneath with the landing gear, it's hit or miss. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Pulling it out the back pretty much always works. Alright. As you can see, running into an issue here, so it fell through. And so did that one. So, not the end of the world. Just means we're going to have to go up in the cockpit. And once they get that stuff fixed, then it won't be an issue. But until then, this is where we're at. Now, with that being said, some people would say, why bother? But let's face it, prospectors buys mining ships, the issues has always been the amount you can mine. Yeah, you get like basically one outcropping of rocks, and then you're done. Or you have to be very selective and only take like 60, 70, 80% chunks of a material. This allows you to do more, because you figure with 3 sets of bags in the ship, plus the one on the Golem, you're looking at 128 SCU. That's even more than a mole. For a little inconvenience with changing the bags out and having to deal with this, and a little more time back at the station to unload, but instead of making 4 trips, I make 1. And I don't have to be as selective. Now you could be. You could go out in this setup and be as selective as you want. And that would, obviously, you'd make more per run. But I just like mining, so I don't want to have to deal with that. Make sure you turn it. Those little pipe entry points have to be up. And then kind of square it up before you try to put it on. And you can hold R to rotate it. And you can use the middle mouse wheel when you're holding R to actually change the angle like that. And basically just put it in there until it's got that green box and lock it in. Alright, now let's see if we can reach this other one. Probably without falling out, because that would suck. Same thing, rotate it the way you need it. Middle mouse wheel while you're holding R to turn it a little bit. Square it up. Take your time. We're enjoying mining, so there's no rush. Got lucky there. Alright. Here we go. Now we're set. And because we're still up in the air, I don't have to take off or do anything else. So I can just get back in the Golem and go. So what we're going to do here is we're basically just going to do a full mining run. take it back and put it in the refinery. Ease your way out. There's no rush. Don't want to clip anything. Nothing ruins a mining trip faster than going boom. Alright. Then we need to run around the other side, because the rocks are in the front of the ship. And we'll go ahead and pick up where we left off. We'll go ahead and double check these. So they're all pretty low. Couldn't remember if we've seen that one or not. But we've got a little bit here. And we've still got another. Oh, that's another Vexilite rock. So we'll go ahead and crack this one. And basically rinse and repeat. Again, up into the charge zone. Balance it out in the first half or so. If you go over, just back off. Let it cool off a little bit. Okay, try to maintain it with about the middle or lower. And then we'll go ahead and start picking up. That's not a bad chunk there. Not real big, but a lot of content. All right, we'll just keep going. We'll probably pick up most of this. Well, obviously most of it that's actually worthwhile. Now I realize not everybody has a C2M2, whatever the case may be. But I mean, it's something to work towards. Because you're going to need a cargo ship to move your refinery orders anyway. So if you can get a Hercules and have it dual do purpose, then that works. All right, we'll go ahead and grab the rest of this Vexilite and copper. Alright, so now what we've got left is this Quantanium rock. A few chunks left of that Terranite. We'll go ahead and grab them, because we're already over halfway here. There we go. Sometimes that one rock fell off, so clear it up a little bit. And I think they're still doing the one mining event, but I'm not sure. The cargo one, where you can do copper and corundum. So, never hurts to pick it up, just in case. Alright, and we're full again. So that's the second set of bags. So, basically we'll do the same thing. We'll go in through the back. You can see how it stows the mining laser. Quick note, you have to change the modules in the hangar, in the vehicle manager, loadout manager, You cannot get to them otherwise. I guess theoretically in space you can, but not in the hangar or on another ship. So gravity kind of defeats that. You don't have to way up on top. Whoop. Easy does it. Sticks are a little jumpy today. That or I'm just having an off day. Alright. So go ahead and get the landing gear down, get it parked, and then we'll take the bags off again. These little bumps aren't really going to hurt anything, so don't worry too much. Obviously, you don't want to go crazy with it. Don't go full bore into it. Otherwise, you could have an issue. Alright. So let's do this again. We already have that unloaded from last time, so we've already got these bags sitting here, so we'll go ahead and move them out of the way and store them. We'll go ahead and take them over to the left here. Go basically as far over to the left as you can and as far forward. Theoretically, if you did it right, you could probably fit about 4 extra sets of bags. I'm not worried about that. Alright, so let's go ahead and pull these off. And we'll get the next set on. For the sake of brevity and making this not a 2-hour video, we'll probably just do one more load with the Quantanium and whatever else I can pick up. But normally, I would basically stay here until all these bags are filled, even if I have to crack another rock. Yeah, well, there we go. Got lucky. Came right up. Alright, this will be bag set number 3. Get it squared up. Somewhat. You don't have to be perfect, but you got to be close. Alright. We'll go ahead and store these, since this will probably be the last set we lose anyway. And then we'll move the ship and get that last bag on. Like I said, just run it as far as forward as it can and still snap. We'll grab the other one, put in there, and we'll move the ship and get the last bag installed. I take the ladder because for me it's quicker. I don't have to wait for the elevator. So. And so far in this patch, I haven't seen any issues with the ladders kicking you out while you're sitting still. So it hasn't been an issue. Alright, so there's our 4-pod. So we'll go ahead and move a little forward, and then we'll pull it in. Just need to be able to see it. Still trying to keep the ship a little level. Keep in mind this last batch is going to have Quantanium, so we're going to go ahead and have to leave after it's all picked up. So I am actually operating in Pyro right now. I believe we're on Bloom, I believe. Sorry about that. Distractions. Alright, let's get this pod picked up. Again, rotate it how you need it to be. Pipes up. Then R middle mouse wheel. Scrolling to turn it around. And typically once you click the button, you're usually good to go on the enter ship thing. You don't have to worry about falling off or anything. But I would still make sure your golem's inside far enough that you don't have to worry. Alright. Alright, next up. Quantanium. We might have actually take a crack at that laranite too, just because. I think it was around 17 or 18k. But you'd be surprised what you can do now. Alright, back to the rocks. Alright, so this rock is too big. That's 25k. But that one may not be. I'm going to say this laser does pretty good with copper, I believe. But we'll see. Yep, we got a little bit of charge coming here. Let's see if we can build it. Now keep in mind, it's not going to do this with all types of rocks. Some are better than others for this particular setup. This just happens to be one of them. Once you get over too high in resistance, it's probably not going to work. And basically all I'm doing here is hedging my bets. I'd rather go back with a full load in all 3 bags rather than partially empty bag. So I'm going to go ahead and crack this if I can. And then that way, after we pick up the Quantanium, we'll grab from this just to top off the load. And again, if I wasn't doing a video right now, I would probably see about finding other rocks and trying to keep an eye on where this Quantanium rock is, see if there's anything else close by. And then I'd probably try to max out. If I couldn't, then I would basically do exactly what I'm doing here. That or I would fill up on laranite for the 3rd set of bags and then use a 4th set for the Quantanium. Because laranite still sells pretty decent. It's not as valuable as the other top tier metals or ores, but it still works. And in this particular method of mining with the Hercules and the Golem, you don't have to be quite as exact on just high-end materials. Because you're getting a larger quantity. Alright, almost there. Alright, there we go. 18K mass rock with a golem. Not even sure if I could have done that right now with the Hofstede on the Prospector. And unfortunately, you can't put this on the Prospector. At least I don't believe you can. Would be nice if you could. Honestly, I'm not even sure if it's removable. What I'm looking for mainly here is rocks that are already broken. I don't have to do a second break. If I can find enough of them that don't need a second break, then I'll just leave it. And again, if I wasn't doing the video, we'd be breaking all these secondary breaks and picking up pretty much all of this in one load that we could. And then we'd go pick up the Quantanium and pick up whatever's left. Alright, let's go crack that Quantanium. Quantanium right now, still pretty valuable. Plus, if you're doing the Wicklow missions, I believe the one for the Polaris, I think it is, requires like 25 SCU loads of Quantanium. There we go. A little bit harder to crack, not as big of a charge window, so this should be interesting. We can do it though. Just be cautious with it. You're going to have to really feather it a little bit here and there to keep it in that charge zone. So, don't be quite as much of a rush to get into the charge zone. Just kind of gradually ease it up in if you can. And you can move a little closer if you really want to, but I don't see a need. And as you can see, I'm just going to kind of feather it back and forth and try to keep it in that yellow zone. Yep, a little high. Again, not the end of the world. Just back off, let it cool off a little bit. Just try to keep it in the charge zone. If you get too far into the red, then you want to go ahead and let it cool down enough to clear that out. Alright, being this wasn't very big, we should have all pickups here. Alright, so far they're looking like they're all purple. Looks like we actually got a pretty decent break. Yeah, it's a pretty good break for that size rock. Alright. Yeah, we'll go ahead and crack this one. Being that it's like 68% or whatever, it should actually be pretty close to... We get a good break on it, we should get a nice chunk. Or a couple of them. Now remember, the Quantanium timer starts when you start picking up Quantanium. So as long as you don't pick it up yet, you've got all the time in the world. Or unless the server crashes. If you want to get in any scanning, anything like that, that you can ahead of time. There's a decent chunk. There's the really good one. Sometimes you got to move around a little bit. There's another good one. So I think we'll have enough to finish out this bag load. Yep, so we got 300s there already. So we'll grab those first once we get Quantanium. That's inert. Alright, and then these other ones we've already scanned, so. Alright. Oop, that one's already purple. Never mind. Alright. Again, left alt and the left mess mountain. Or maybe it's the right. One of those two will actually switch between extraction and fracture. I forget which right now. I think it's left. Alright, so we'll get all this picked up. Because Quantanium ain't cheap. As you can see, I'm going to pick up most of it. I may or may not grab that 4% piece. But I definitely want to get the rest. Anything that's, significant. Yeah, what the heck, we'll grab it. Alright, so we got about 8, a little under 8.5. Or is that 9? Nope, that's 9. A little under 9.5. And we'll go ahead and grab these 100% laranite rocks. We'll try to fill up as much as possible. Keep in mind we're on the clock now. You got 25 minutes from the time you pick up the first Quantanium. And frankly, that 18K rock broke pretty good. Again, I'm not breaking any more rocks at this point. So there you go, Wolf Purple. So now we'll go ahead and get back in the ship and we'll go. Because at this point now we have to get back to the mining station. A little major torque imbalance there. That's probably from the Quantanium popping. And we're not really worried about this part too much. The Quantanium is going to be what's in the bag. So, as long as we store the ship as soon as we get back, we won't have to worry about it. And you can store the Golem inside the C2 when you send it down, and then you sell from it. You'll actually sell from the C2, but it'll be on the Golem. They unfortunately do not have where you can sell off the cargo grid yet. Unfortunately. So we'll go ahead and close the doors here. I mean, I could have done it up top, but I'm already here, so. Alright, now let's get in the pilot seat and go. Downside also being, if you're not in the Golem, you have no idea how much time you have left. Unfortunately. But at this point, the rush is get back to the station, get the ship stored. Once it's stored, you're safe. So we'll jump into nav mode, get up out of atmosphere, and then we'll set our sights. We're in Pyro right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and go to Stanton Gateway, just because there has been a case of people waiting outside some of the stations within Pyro lately, so it's just easier to go there. And with the M2 or the C2, it's not a factor because it has a pretty big tank. As you can see, I only used about 1.5 million to get here, and I've still got 5 million left. So get up out of atmosphere, and then we'll swing around and start our jump. Also keep in mind, this is a stock drive that I have in here. I've not upgraded this ship at all. So, obviously I cut out a lot of the jump, so. Alright, then we'll basically use nav mode. We'll go ahead and head into the station and we'll switch to SEM. Usually within about 10K, I'll switch. Sometimes later, just depending on where I'm at, what line I'm on. The idea is you don't want to spend any more time in space than you have to. And we'll do the speed brake, SCM style. Get our hangar, and head over and dock. Well, we're not going to dock, we're going to fly in. But you get the point. Fly a little upside down so I got a better view of what I'm doing. Now again, this is going to be a little bit yet just because we've got to store the ship, sew what's in the bags, come back to the hangar, pull the ship back up, change the bags, and rinse and repeat. We'll have to do that obviously 2 additional times. So we'll make 3 trips to the refinery. Again, same rules apply for Quantanium. Be gentle. Don't slam your ship down. You always run the risk of exploding. As far as I know, they have not changed that. I haven't actually tried it to find out in this patch, but there's no sense in messing with it. Alright, we're down. Worry about refueling and all that later. Then we'll pull the Golem out and leave it off to the side and repair it and all that stuff. Quick note, when you pull the Golem out of the ship to actually repair, I'm going to do this, the elevator, just so I can actually get out of the ship quicker. That way I don't have to open any doors. When you pull the Golem out of the ship, you can store it in one of the cubbies off to the right or left of the where the terminal is. And then send the Hercules down. And then you'll probably need to call something up like an Atlas just to get the lift, the hangar bay to come up. And then you can put it on there and store it and repair it, whatever else. What I've had to do is bring the Atlas up, have the Atlas sitting in there where it came up at, and then fly the Golem onto the pad and send it all down together, and it'll usually store it. But we don't do that until the ship's empty. All right. Again, wait till it goes away. Don't want to take any chances with our work. And I usually wait for the doors to be pretty much closed. But definitely at least wait until your ship actually disappears. There you go. Now you're safe to go. You can see in here, it's actually stored. Once we get to it, there you go. And it does actually show the golem at the station, but you cannot call it up individually while it's on the M2. So you will have to bring the M2 up, fly it out of it, store the M2, and then deal with the golem. So a little more work in the station, but overall I'd say it's worth it to be able to just make one trip out for multiple bag loads. And if nothing else, this showed you what the golem can do at the very least. So far I'm pretty impressed with it. It's not a bad little ship. Once they get the scanning working, I think it'll be really good for a starter ship. If you're just starting the game and you want to get into the industrial gameplay, then you can do that. Eventually they'll actually have probably a salvage ship around the same size too, in which case you can go either route. Alright, and as you can see, we've got it all here. Going to do Dinnick solventation. We'll select all the ores, leave the inert. Taking a little time here after I get the quote because I'm using Regolith, and it actually has a scan feature that'll actually scan the screen, the area you select. I'll cover that in another episode when I do an update for Regolith. But it's actually pretty cool because you don't have to type in all the numbers or anything. You just have to select what station you're at and where you want to sell, and then you're good. Alright, whoops. Didn't want to do that. Now we got to set it up again. Everything's going to be the same, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, Regolith didn't get it, so we're going to try again. Alright, there we go. So that work order's in. Now we need to go back. So we got about 8 SCU. We'll go ahead and go back to the hangar, pull the M2 up, change the bags out, do it again. At this point, we're pretty much good. If you want to see the rest, by all means. I would at least wait and see how I do the bags. That way you know. Just like on the planet or in space, sometimes bags will fall through the floor. You can still usually get them. It's one of the reasons I put them so far forward. That way they don't get caught on any landing gear or anything like that. And no, I don't have a trick for making the elevators go faster. I just cut it out when I edited the video. So I basically just show you the doors closing and opening. Alright. We'll pull the M2 back up. And now the back of ship is facing us, so it's even easier. We don't have to run all the way around. So we'll go open the ramp. We'll actually go ahead and switch the ship around so it's facing out instead of in. And then we'll go from there. Like I said, you end up with a little more processing time back at the station. But you're also not having to leave the station for another load. You're getting all of that out of the way at the same time. Sorry, get a little drink here before we keel over. Alright, that should do. Yes, you can stack the empty bottles still and actually have a full bottle when you put it in your hand. Little glitch for you. Save you having to carry a bunch of bottles. Alright, so, and yes, it is time consuming. But not as time consuming if you went out, found a patch of rocks, mined it, and came back. So, now, some of you may prefer that. Just go out, get your load, come back, refine it, leave and do it again. I usually look for ways I can spend as little time flying as possible. So, and on the bright side, we only have to flip the ship around once. The rest of the time, it'll still be in there the same way. Alright, set it down. Straighten out, then set it down. The other thing is, too, obviously, if you're doing this in the hangar, when you're coming to and from the hangar, make sure nobody's in your elevator. Because with your ship open, they'll be able to get in, and they can shoot you in your hangar. So, if your ship's not up, they can't pull it, but they can still jack your ship if you've got it out and open. Alright, same process we used to change the bags before. We're just doing it inside the hangar now instead. Alright, we got this set here. I got lucky. It popped right up. See if we get lucky again. Nope. Alright. So now we'll have to go outside and drag the box back up in here. Or the ore pod. It's honestly not complicated, just time consuming. And again, eventually, hopefully, they'll get that fixed. But we'll see. So basically, just reel it in. Then take it up in the ship and put it on. Alright, put this back in there, then we'll send the ship back down. Do it again. You send the ship down because when you leave the hangar, your ship may or may not stay there. And you don't want to deal with that. And you can leave it open or not. It's your choice. It's going to close when it comes back up anyway. Alright, we'll go ahead and store it. And rinse or repeat. Alright, back to the refinery. We'll start another workload or work order. And then we'll still have one left to do after this. Obviously, you can do this with as many sets of bags you can squeeze on there. Just leave yourself enough room to work and move them around. I found 3 sets of extra bags works pretty good for me. I've heard of people having 4 and they have to fight with a little bit, so 3 seems to be ideal. Yeah, just like we did before, the next solventation. Select the ores you want to keep. Get a quote. You can use regolith. You do have to hit get quote in order for regolith to recognize it. Well, because that way it'll show the cost and the time. So, and then for those that are familiar, when you actually do the ship order in regolith, down at the bottom in the middle of the work order, it says to, I think, share screen or scan or something like that. You click on that, it'll actually run something asking like about sharing a screen for your game. And then you just select the area with like a box that crops the area, and it just looks in that area. So shout out to Ray Chaser for that, because that's a good feature. Like I said, at some point here I'll do another episode of regolith so we can show you how that works. I'm not sure. I would imagine Ray Chaser probably has a video for it, but just to be on the safe side. All right, third final set of bags. Wait till the elevator's all the way up so you don't fall through the floor. I haven't heard anybody doing that lately, but they used to. All right, and the last set of bags. So again, we'll move these out of the way and then take those off. Looks like these ones aren't going to be quite so easy. Trying to get the top of them, see if maybe that does something. But nope. Looks like they're going to fall through the floor. So, in the new PTU patch, they've actually got, at least on the elevator, where they don't sink down in the floor anymore. So theoretically, this shouldn't be happening anymore. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but when I do, I'll test it out and see. Hopefully the fact that it's not doing it in the elevator means it's not doing it in the ships either. In which case you won't have to worry about it falling through the floor, and that'll save some time. Come on, get over there. There we go. Alright, we'll go ahead and move these. Gotta get ready for the next trip. And then we'll go out and get the other set. Bring them in. Alright. Let's get the last ones on and we'll go sell. Well, we'll go refine. Yeah, if you want to save a little time, I guess you could pull it all the way back here, set it off to the side, and pull the other one. That way you don't have to do it twice. Well, you still do it twice. You just do it all at once. And that'll eliminate a lot of that finessing you have to do to push it through there. Theoretically, we could have opened the front ramp, brought it up through there before we moved the other boxes, but I mean, it is what it is. I'm sure there's 10 different ways to do something. I do my way. If it works for you, great. If you have a better way, feel free to share. Like I said, you got to get it lined up properly for the most part. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to fit. And again, keep in mind, if the pipe inputs are not up, you'll need to rotate it. So like this one will need rotated. There we go. Hopefully they'll fix these ramps too so they actually touch the ground or get closer anyway. And you figure it probably takes about a half an hour in the station to get all this done with fighting with it and everything. But again, if you were to actually do a mining run, you'd probably be longer than that. So, you know, by the time you go out there, find a patch of rocks, break it up, scoop it up, and come back to the station. And Pyro, even more so, because everything is so far apart. Now, with that being said, you could go to one of the other stations that are closer, probably. But again, like I said, people seem to be hanging out there trying to blast ships when they come in, and that just doesn't work for me. Stanton Gateway seems to be a little bit safer, not a lot, but a little. And you could do the same thing in Stanton as I'm doing here in Pyro, and it's not as much of a factor there. I haven't heard whether they've got surface mining fixed yet, but you could do the same process that I just did here in the belt, in the Iron Halo. And I try to improve these videos as much as I can. But, you know, I've been doing this less than a year, so we're still learning. With that being said, I've noticed a tendency here to get a couple people here and there that hit dislike, which is fine. It's not for everybody. But if there's a reason you don't like it, feel free to let me know. So at least, you know, if it's something I can fix, then I'm all for it. If you just don't like it, well, that's a different story. But I think to be fair, if there's something that I'm doing in the video you don't like, please let me know. That way we can fix it. Or if there's something I'm not showing you that you need to see. Again, taking the scan here from Regolith, so it takes a second to set it up and do it. Still quicker than typing it though. Alright, and there we go. That's the third order. Alright, if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Otherwise, have a good day.